man, sometimes you get lucky. So not 2 hours after I stopped filming, mail, and it looks like I got some wiring that I was waiting on. So got a wiring harness, which I may or may not need, but I have a roll of 14 gauge wire of dual strand 14 gauge wire, so that's going to be helpful running everything. So let me get set up and I'll show you what we're doing. All right, so this wiring harness is for the 4 lights up here on the front of the Jeep. So the problem is they give you a ridiculous amount of wiring for those 4 lights, and then after that, this all basically should be under the hood. So I'm gonna have to cut down this section and then extend it, because basically the cleanest way to run this into my interior so that I'm not running down the edge of my windshield and stuff like that is going to be to run to the back, go into the cargo hatch, and then run it behind body panels, back up to the front through the firewall, and hook up to the battery. So basically I'm going to get these 4 ends wired to the lights, and then once that's done, I'm going to cut them where I think is appropriate, and then rerun wire all the way to the back. So that's what we're going to start working on. Wiring kit, all of the little waterproof plastic sleeves have slid down on all of the wires, so I'm having to pull them all back up. That's what you see me doing, grabbing it with my teeth. Just that. I'm not stripping wires with my teeth. I'm not a beaver. So man, I'm pretty happy with that. So the wires are all zip tied all along this rail, all the way to the front. And then they're tucked behind the windscreen across the front. So I'm going to cut all the zip ties, and then after I get all the zip ties cut, I'll go ahead and start wiring up the backlights. That way I can have all 3 strands of wire to run through the through the cab of the vehicle all at the same time. It'll just make my life easier running it. So all right, so I got the 3 backlights connected. One here, the harness goes over to this one, and then the big bar is here. Now, this was a used set of lights, so it was missing a couple of the spade connections. So what I did was I had some spade connections, but they're kind of the cheap ones. They're not the sealed ones like you see here. This is one of the factory ones, and it waterproofs it. So whenever I have to use the cheap ones, because I didn't have the good ones on hand, I'll go ahead and wrap it in heat shrink, and then just heat shrink it and give it a little more waterproofing. And you can see I did that on all of them. So, all right, I'm going to bundle these and try to route them nicely, and then we'll try to go into the interior and run them back towards the front. So guys, I'm back. Basically I forgot to record for like 3 hours. I was just running wiring and not thinking much about it. So let's see, I don't know if you can see, but I got my wiring underneath the trim all the way along, and then you can kind of see the red peeking through right up there. That's the wiring. Goes through the firewall. And then runs along here. And it's a spider web, but hey, it's all there. I'm not an electrician by any means. So got it all wired up, and then it goes back through the firewall down there into the car. And then comes through the firewall there. I need to clean those holes up so there's not free flowing air. Runs behind the carpet up to a switch panel, and then I've got the first 2 wired as lights on the front and lights on the rear. So anyway, that's all I got to today. I think I'm probably here. So the switch panel is always on power, and I'm not a huge fan of that. I like the utility of being able to turn the lights on when the vehicle's off, but at the same time, I don't like the battery draw. So I'm considering in the next day or 2 putting in a switch in the power, just switched power, so that I could just kick the power on when I want to and turn it off when I don't want it. I think that's probably what I'm going to end up doing. It looks like that would be a good location for it, or there's one on the other side. So probably one of those 2 places, probably over here. I'll put this switched power in. That way I can turn it on when I feel like it, but I don't have to leave it on all the time and have that drawing power. It's finally time. The front bumper came in. I've got everything pulled off the front, and the new front bumper with the winch mount and the radiator guard came in from HK Off-Road. So I'm going to get this cleaned up and throw a coat of paint on it. So the reason I went with the HK Off-Road bumper is because it's a hidden bumper, and the WJ I think it adds a really clean line to the WJ, keeps some of the classic factory lines without adding a lot of weird bulk. So I went with the HK bumper primarily for that reason, because it is a hidden like flush mount front bumper. It gives you the protection and the armor of a heavy steel front bumper, allows you to mount a winch, but it's actually going to be hidden largely behind the original plastic bumper, so the lines will stay really clean. So the first thing you do is you're going to cut out the member that's between the frame rails, okay? And we're just cutting that off, grinding it flat. I'm going to hit it with some primer paint so that it doesn't rust under there. But you can see that's the original, and you can see how thin that is. So it doesn't offer much front end protection. So this offers, as you can see, a lot more. This is like, I don't know, I think that's 1/4 inch. So nice and heavy duty. And then it actually has a section that goes around the radiator to keep the radiator from getting damaged too, because the radiator hangs down pretty low. You can see how low that hangs down below the frame rails. So step 1 was cutting that out. Like I said, I'm going to hit it with some primer, and then we'll get to step 2, which is going to be putting everything in place and lining everything up so that we could drill holes. All right, well, so sometimes a feller doesn't have enough time to finish a video before he's got to go on a road trip. And sometimes that road trip consists of driving halfway across the country to hang out with a couple of other ugly mugs. So, in the meantime, what I'm going to do is finish out kind of telling y'all about this bumper. So, get on over here, Barry. So basically what I did is I finished getting this bumper installed, and you can see how it hides, the plastic hides it well. Now I did have to modify the plastic a little bit so that I could get to my winch, and I ended up cutting the vent out here so I can get to my control box to plug up my winch controller. But I did finally get this HK Off-Road stubby winch bumper installed. And honestly, what I was telling y'all in the last video, this is what I love about it, is how clean the install is. It's just, you know, when you pan out and look at the whole thing, it really looks close to factory. You know, it's like factory plus, right? And I've got this Smittybilt winch that I put in here. This is the same winch I run on my red Jeep, and it's been a decent winch for me. I mean, I'm sure there are better winches out there, but I don't have Warren money. If Warren wants to sponsor me a winch, they can, but until then, I'm going to run a Smittybilt. But basically, once you get the bumper mounted, then this plastic fascia just goes right back on over everything, and you have to do the couple of small modifications, cutting out around your shackle tabs, cutting out around the areas for your particular winch so everything fits up. But I mean, man, that's just, yeah, we were able to finish getting that installed. It's super clean. It looks super close to factory. It doesn't look too crazy. And I think the product really worked out well for the type of rig I was going for, which is basically my road tripping, mild off-road, trail riding, rough Forest Service roads, get back into the back country and go camp with my wife and my kid rig, you know. So yeah, it came out pretty well. So Barrett, if you'll come around to the driver's side, we'll pop in and I'll show you what I did in here.
Oh, okay.
So when I wired the winch, obviously I've got I got my winch controller in here, which is always good to have. But Matt showed me how on my red Jeep how to wire up a winch so that you could have a in and out switch in your vehicle, you know, run it into the cab. So I took that idea and I went ahead and did that same thing here. I put a momentary on rocker switch right here, and you can see I horribly painted I for in and O for out on it, right? But basically it's just a momentary on rocker, and that lets my winch spool out, and that spools my winch in, and that lets me run that winch from inside the cab, which is going to be super helpful if you're actually needing to self-recover somewhere out in the woods. Makes your life a lot easier. So that's basically kind of, I just wanted to wrap that up for you guys, because I ran out of time before this trip. I literally got that thing installed like 2 days before this trip, and frankly, I wanted to hang out with my brothers more than I wanted to film. But but I wanted to wrap this up for you guys and let y'all see how this turned out. So yeah, that's about it. What do you think, Barrett?
Man, it's fantastic. I love that bumper install.
Yeah.
And I mean, all of the stuff that you've done to the Jeep, you know, the roof rack, the awning, the shower, it's all super cool. But when I walked up and looked at this thing with my own eyeballs the first time without looking at it on camera, and I walked past the front, like I'm getting crap out of the car, I'm unpacking, we're getting our stuff in the house, and I walked by this thing, I didn't even notice there was a bumper. I mean, like, the shackle should have clued me off, but again, I was unpacking, I wasn't paying attention. And when and then when we walked back outside, Joey's like, yeah, check this out. I was like, oh, wait, wow, oh, that's cool. There's a whole...
There's a winch.
Armored winch bumper under there, and it's hidden. That's super slick.
Yeah, and this, like I said, like I showed you in the video, again, it's 1/4-inch plate, but the radiator support's actually covered by DOM tubing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, that was actually one of the weakest points in the design of the WJ, was how low the radiator hung down.
Yeah.
And so this small company, HK Off-Road, with them coming out with a way to build a winch bumper, but also to protect that radiator in the rocks, like, it's a win.
It's super slick.
You know?
It's super slick, dude. I'm tickled with how everything turned out. It looks great.
Yeah. So, anyway, guys, God bless. Thanks for watching.
Like and subscribe.
You stole my line.
We love you, and we'll talk to you later.
Bye.